You are home alone. The house is quiet. You are in the kitchen, perhaps getting a glass of water. Everything is normal. And then it happens. A sudden prickling sensation on the back of your neck. A feeling that somewhere in the shadows of the hallway there is an eye. That someone or something is looking directly at you. You freeze. Your heart rate spikes. Your pupils dilate. You turn around, searching the darkness, but there is nothing there. Just the empty room. Just the silence. You tell yourself it was just your imagination. You laugh it off, but deep down, the feeling doesn't fully disappear. You feel it again when you go to bed. You feel it when you walk past a dark window. Most people call this being paranoid or having a vivid imagination. But what if that's not what's happening? What if that feeling, that sudden, irrational certainty that you are being watched, isn't a glitch? What if it's the oldest survival mechanism your brain possesses? To understand this, we have to look at the world your ancestors occupied. For 99.9% of human history, humans were not at the top of the food chain. We were prey. We lived in a world of leopards, hyenas, and ambush predators. In that world, silence wasn't peace. Silence was a predator holding its breath. Evolution didn't favor the bold. It favored the paranoid. To put that in perspective, anthropologists estimate that for roughly 300,000 years, humans lived as prey as often as they lived as predators. Not occasionally, constantly. Our ancestors moved in small bands, usually no more than a few dozen people. No walls, no locked doors, no streetlights holding back the dark, just open ground and whatever was watching from the edges of it. In that world, staying alive wasn't about being the strongest. It was about being the most alert. Imagine two of your ancestors walking through the tall grass. One hears a rustle. He thinks it's just the wind. He keeps walking. The other hears the same rustle. He thinks it's a predator. He runs. If the first man is wrong, he dies. If the second man is wrong, he just looks foolish for running from the wind. Which gene survives? The one that assumes the world is watching. The one that assumes that every sound, every movement is an agent of danger. Psychologists call this agency detection bias. It is a hardwired shortcut in your brain that forces you to assume there is an agent behind every noise. It is the reason you see faces in clouds. It is the reason you hear footsteps in an empty attic. It is the reason you feel watched. Your brain would rather be wrong 1,000 times and be scared than be wrong once and be killed. Think back to being a child, lying in bed, convinced something was under it, or standing at the top of a dark staircase, certain that if you turned around fast enough, you'd catch something moving in the corner of your eye. You couldn't explain it. There was no evidence, no sound, no shape, nothing you could point to, but the certainty was total. That wasn't a childhood fear you eventually outgrew. It was agency detection bias running at full strength in a brain too young to override it with logic yet. Adults don't lose this system. They just get better at talking themselves out of it. The closet still creaks the same way. The shadow still moves the same way when a car passes outside. The only thing that changed is that you learned to say the word imagination before your body finished reacting. But the reaction still happens first. But it goes deeper than just predators. You aren't just looking for shadows. You are looking for gaze. The human brain is uniquely obsessed with eyes. From the moment you are born, your brain is tuned to track the direction of other people's eyes. We have a specialized circuit in the brain, centered in the amygdala and the superior temporal sulcus, designed for one specific task, detecting when we are being observed. And because this system is so sensitive, it is prone to misfiring. It's a better safe than sorry mechanism. If you think someone is looking at you, your brain initiates a state of high alert. It doesn't matter if it's a person, a statue, or just a dark corner. If the pattern looks like a gaze, your brain reacts as if it is a threat. And this isn't just theory. In one well-known study, researchers placed a simple poster above an office honesty box, the kind where people pay for coffee on trust. Some weeks, the poster showed flowers. Other weeks, it showed a pair of eyes. Nothing else changed. No cameras, no supervisor, no real person watching. But when the eyes were on the wall, people paid nearly 3 times more. Not because anyone was actually watching, but because some ancient part of their brain believed they were. That's how powerful this system is. It doesn't need real eyes. It just needs the shape of a gaze. But here is where it gets strange. Why does this happen even when we are alone? Why, in a room where you know, logically, that no one is present, does the sensation persist? It's because of something scientists call the gaze detection mismatch. In the natural environment where we evolved, humans were almost never truly alone. We lived in constant, intense, face-to-face contact with our tribe. We were constantly being evaluated, judged, and watched watched by our peers. Your reputation, your status, and your survival depended on your social visibility. If you were ignored, you were vulnerable. But if you were being watched, you were part of the group. The feeling of being watched was a social feedback loop. Today, we have replaced that tribal environment with the solitude of modern life. We spend hours in empty rooms. We walk alone at night. We sit in silent houses. But our brain's social monitoring system doesn't know what to do with that isolation. It was built for a world of constant connection. When it finds itself in an empty modern room, it doesn't just shut down. It searches for the missing social signals. It tries to recreate the environment it was built for. It projects presence into the space because, for a human, the only thing more dangerous than a predator is being invisible. Think about how much of modern life happens in isolation that would have been unthinkable for most of human history. You scroll through your phone in bed, alone, while dozens of people are texting, posting, existing somewhere out of sight. You sit in a waiting room, surrounded by strangers who never speak, never make eye contact, never acknowledge you exist. You walk through a parking garage at night, past hundreds of empty cars, and not a single person to notice if something happened to you. For nearly all of human history, this kind of aloneness was rare, and rare for a reason. It meant you had drifted from the group. It meant no one was close enough to help. Your brain still treats that condition as an emergency, even when you know logically that you are simply waiting for a coffee order or checking a text. It doesn't calculate safety. It calculates exposure. This is why the feeling rarely shows up in a crowded room. You can be surrounded by noise, traffic, other people's conversations, and feel completely at ease. But remove all of that and something shifts. An empty office after everyone has gone home. A quiet street after the shops have closed. A house that's usually full of noise, suddenly still. The space itself hasn't changed. Only the presence of other people has. And your brain, built across hundreds of thousands of years around constant company, doesn't experience that absence as peace. It experiences it as a question with no answer. Where did everyone go? And why am I the only one left to notice? Not because you are in danger, but because for your ancestors, being unseen and being unsafe were almost always the same thing. And this is why it happens most often when you are trying to be quiet. When you are alone at night and the world is still, your brain begins to scan for agency. It is checking to see if you are still connected to the tribe, and because it finds nothing, it interprets that nothing as a potential threat. Your brain is asking, why am I unseen? And because it cannot answer, it fills the silence with the feeling of a gaze. But there is a twist in this story. Research into this phenomenon has revealed something fascinating. The sensation of being watched is almost always strongest when you are stressed or tired. Why? Because when your cognitive resources are low, your brain switches to its default mode. It falls back on ancient, automatic reflexes. You felt this before even if you never named it. Walking to your car in an empty parking lot after a long shift, exhausted, and suddenly every shadow feels like it's holding its breath. But on a rested morning, walking the exact same path, nothing. Same lot, same lighting, same silence, different brain. It stops listening to your logical brain, which knows you are safe in your locked home, and it starts listening to the survival brain, which knows that night is dangerous. You aren't going crazy. You aren't imagining things. You are experiencing a clash between two worlds. The world you live in, a safe, modern, isolated space, and the world your brain remembers, a dangerous, social, and unforgiving landscape. So the next time you feel that prickle on your neck, the next time you turn around to look at the empty darkness, don't fight it. Don't tell yourself you are being silly. Instead, recognize it for what it is. It is an ancient, tireless guard, a tiny part of you that has been watching the shadows for 300,000 years. It is not there to haunt you. It is there to keep you alive. It is the ghost of your ancestors looking out through your eyes, ensuring that even in the modern silent world, you are never truly caught off guard. You are not being watched by a stranger. You are being protected by a system that has never stopped working. And in that realization, the darkness changes. It is no longer a place of fear. It is a place of survival. And perhaps that is the most important lesson the night has to teach us. We were never meant to be alone. And as long as our brains keep watch, even in the deepest silence, we never really are.